The night was cold, the rain was merciless, and the sound of thunder echoed across the sky like a warning. She had never imagined that her path would cross with his this way. She was just an ordinary woman, struggling to keep her world together, while he was the kind of man who seemed untouchable, powerful, wealthy, and distant. But fate had a strange way of bringing two broken souls together. The storm grew worse, and in desperation, she ran into a small abandoned cabin on the edge of the woods. Shivering, drenched to the bone, she didn't expect anyone else to be there. But when she turned, her heart nearly stopped. He was already inside. The millionaire, known for his cold demeanor and his ruthless success, stood by the broken fireplace, trying to light a flame. For a moment, their eyes locked. His gaze was sharp, yet behind it was something she couldn't explain, an emptiness, a loneliness that mirrored her own. Neither of them spoke at first. The storm outside howled, the rain beat against the roof, and the silence between them grew heavier than the thunder. Finally, he broke it. "You should sit by the fire," he said, his voice deep, calm, but with a trace of weariness. She hesitated, unsure. Everyone knew who he was. He was the kind of man who didn't let anyone close. Yet here he was, offering her warmth. Slowly, she sat down, her hands trembling as she held them out to the flickering fire. Minutes passed. Neither spoke much, but the silence began to soften. She could feel him watching her, as though he wanted to say something but couldn't. She stole a glance at him and saw not the intimidating man from the headlines, but someone carrying invisible scars. The storm raged on, trapping them together. She tried to distract herself, talking about simple things, the rain, the night, her fear of storms. He listened quietly, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to share a piece of his past. He spoke about his childhood, the loneliness of growing up in a house full of riches but empty of love. He told her about betrayal, about how people had always seen his money but never his soul. She listened, her heart aching with every word. No one had ever heard him speak like this. She could see it in his eyes, he wasn't used to being understood. And in that moment, she became the first person to truly listen. The hours crept by, and the fire grew warmer. At one point, lightning struck nearby, and she gasped in fear. Without thinking, he reached out and held her hand. She froze, then slowly relaxed in his grasp. It was the first time in years that he had touched someone with gentleness, and the first time she had felt safe in the presence of a man. They laughed a little after that. Small things, her teasing him about his expensive shoes getting ruined in the mud, his smirk when she confessed she'd never been inside a mansion. The laughter eased the tension, weaving an invisible thread between them. But it wasn't just laughter. There were moments of silence too, when their eyes met and lingered longer than they should have. The kind of silence where words weren't needed, because something deeper was already being spoken between their hearts. By the time dawn began to break, the storm had calmed. The world outside was still wet and broken, but inside that cabin, something new had been born. She rose, brushing her damp hair from her face, and whispered, "I should go." His chest tightened at her words. For years, he had been alone, convincing himself that solitude was strength. But last night had shaken him to his core. He had shared more with her than he had with anyone in his life. He couldn't let her just walk away. As she reached the door, his voice broke the silence. It wasn't the voice of the cold millionaire anymore. It was raw, vulnerable, almost pleading. "Don't leave me." She froze, her heart pounding. She turned to look at him, and in that moment, she saw the truth in his eyes. Beneath all the power, beneath the armor he wore for the world, he was just a man, afraid of being abandoned, desperate to be loved. Tears stung her eyes as she stepped closer. He reached for her hand again, this time not to comfort her, but to keep her there, to keep her with him. And she didn't pull away. That one night, trapped by the storm, had rewritten their fates. What began as chance became destiny. What began as silence became love. And what began as loneliness ended with a promise, unspoken but powerful, that neither of them would ever have to face the world alone again. The millionaire had found his heart again, not in wealth or success, but in the quiet courage of a woman who dared to stay when everyone else had walked away. And she had found not just shelter from the storm, but a love strong enough to change her life forever. That night wasn't just a storm, it was the beginning of everything.